You want to wait a little bit, Frankie, or you want to? Should we're streaming live? All right. Should we go ahead and get started? All right. First session in the Code Theater. So welcome to Explore 2024. We're going to talk about creating management packs for operations. And it's a way for customers to bring in data from anything that has an API. Does it sound okay yet? All right, sounded like it got quiet there, sorry. So let's go ahead and get started. So there's a little bit about me. If you want to follow me on X, I do blog about this stuff, and I have a blog site, and there's a QR code if you want to follow it. You know, anything that is automation or operations or logging, I do a lot of blogging, and the blogs usually come from customers or questions that I get from my customers. So yeah, this is what we're gonna talk about is, you know, making the management pack. So, you know, basically any source, and I have some pretty cool examples, I think, that if you can make an API call to it, you can bring that data into operations. So yeah, your sources could be, you know, if there's storage arrays or anything like that, that if there isn't a management pack available from VMware, you can make your own. And then once you bring that data in, you can use that data just like anything else. You know, it can be part of a view, report, or dashboards, or whatever. So I was looking for a source that anybody sitting here could go back home and kind of test this if you install the management pack. So there's a website that's called status.broadcom.com, and it shows you the status of all their web services and stuff. And they do a really good job of explaining how the APIs work. So that's what I'm going to show you. And then what you learn here, if you have another source that's an API, I mean, you can do the same thing. So here's the website. So you got the status.broadcom, it's like all there says status API. And I'm like, oh, if I could pull that information into operations, I could show that as a dashboard. And if a certain status on one of the products went, you know, degraded or whatever, I could alert on that. So if we go and look at that website, they tell you exactly how to use it. They give you the path to the API, and then if you do the status, and if you want to interact with me a little bit, if you pull up your pull up your phones, and you go to status.broadcom.com, hit the API at the bottom, and copy. If you would copy this link right here, you'll see exactly what the management pack builder is going to get back from the website. And you could do this on your laptop when you're done or whatever. So it does a really good job, and then it shows you, hey, here's exactly what the JSON is going to be that's going to come back when you go to that web page. So there you can see, you know, if you go to that website, which I have listed here, this is what you're going to get back. And what was important to me to bring that back into operations was the state. And the state, you can see it shows as being degraded. And then they also have the components within that website. So you can see the address at the top changed a little bit, and they give you a really nice example of what's going to come back. Same thing with notices, that the website, if it has a notice and you want to alert on something, and everyone ways to work with a good example. And then you can, if you want to see what the results are coming back, if you just go to a web page or a web browser and put in that address, you can see what the results are going to be coming back to the management pack builder. Same thing with the ID, you know, it's showing you how that works. And then if there's If there's more than 25 items coming back, they only allow 25 at a time. It lets you do paging. So you can then say that, hey, only bring 25 back for page 1, and then the management pack builder will just keep going. Page 2 will be the next 25, page 3. So it just kind of keeps going, keeps pulling back all the results for you. And we're going to get into that. So yeah, like I said, so the website, it's a great place to learn. Even if you never put it, if you never take that information and put it into operations, it's just a really great way to learn how the management pack builder works. The thing that's nice about this website is there's no authentication. So if you, an easy way to start to use a management pack builder is if you just point to those APIs, it's going to bring back the information to you without any authentication. And then once you understand how that works, then you could start looking at maybe doing more difficult pieces. So there's the version of the management pack builder that I used. So if you sign into the management pack builder, these are I had some that I was testing with. So if you click on the management pack that I created, you give it some information. You know, you can give it a name, a description, and then you can also version it if you're going to do some versioning. And then when you go to the source, this is where, from that website where it kind of said, hey, here's the path that you need to go to get this information back. That's where you put in the source. So let's go edit that. So you put in the website name, or if you're working with a storage array or some kind of, you know, anything in your environment that you can use an API, you put the path in, tell which port, and then the base API path for the API. And then it'll show you in the preview here, it even shows you, all right, this is where we're going to go and this is where we're going to get that information. And then authentication, like I said, for this, there is none required. So it's an awesome way to kind of learn how the management pack builder works without making it too difficult for you to start. And then you go down through, it'll ask you for the, you know, the connection strings. And then you can test that. So when you put in all that information, you do a test. And then we're going to test the connection, and then it'll come back and say, all right, I was able to connect and get some information. And just like I showed you with the web browser, it shows you what is returned. And then there's the log information for making that request. So then so that's the source. So you define your source, and then you go to the request. So the request is, you know, I want to check the status, and I'm going to show you how two of them work because they can be, you know, the path to the API is slightly different. So let's go into the first one. So the API path for status is you know, API, you know, version 1 status, and then the request name, I called it status, and then it shows you, here's the path. So when I said, you know, version 1/status, just like it did on that web page, and then there's your headers that it creates, which is very simple for this one, and then there's the body that it's going to use. And since this is only going to bring back a status of, you know, okay or degraded or whatever those options were, it's a very simple, and there's no paging involved. So with this one here, we don't have to do any paging for status. Oh, there it is. So yeah, it'll say operational, degraded, or under maintenance. So then the next one I wanted to show you was future notices. So if we go into future notices, that's where we'll go in, and nothing there. But now if you notice that the API path, instead of saying status, it says notices, and I called it future notices, and then it shows you the preview of what the path is going to be. And this is where this one gets different than on just getting a status was a simple request, bring me a status back. Now this one, when I said, show me the notices, and then I defined a parameter that says, all right, I'm going to do a filter, and the timeline is equal to the future. So I wanted to say, all right, give me any notice that's going to be for those SaaS services that's going to be in the future. So then you can see it builds, you can see the preview of the path. It says notices, filter, timeline is equal to future. And when you do that test, it'll come back and then show you, all right, here's all the notices. Now, so it's successful. So now this is where there's usually more than 25. So this is where you have to say, all right, I'm going to do paging. So you can say that the paging parameter is page. Starting on page 1, I'm going to limit it to 25 per page, and then it's going to go through until it doesn't get any more results. And then you can do the test, and it'll test successfully, hopefully. And then you can see the log. So we define the source, we define the request to the APIs, and now when the management pack builder talks to the APIs and brings back the test, it'll know what objects that it can bring back. So now we're going to go in and, like, for status, we're going to go in and tell it. You can see that the property count was 6 and there was no metrics. So you can go in here, because if you don't want everything that it returns, you can just pick and choose. So let's go look at that. So this is where I'm going to say that it's the status. And then here's the attributes. So it's by doing that test and making that request, this is everything that it brought back. ID, name, state, URL, when it was created, when it was last updated. So I picked which ones that I wanted to bring back into the management pack. And then you can go here under the properties and metrics. And if you wanted to change any of these, it did it says, hey, this is a string, is it a property or not? You can kind of control that. And then I gave it the source. I want the unique identifier when it makes that API request is name, and that's what I picked there, and I called it the same thing. I called it name. And then let's do the same thing for future notices in the future. So if you go under objects, now you can see this one actually had 19 properties that it brought back. No metrics. And I called it notices for the future. And then these are all the properties that it came back, and I went and I selected all of them. And if there's some that you don't care about, when you're working with your APIs, you don't have to select everything that it's going to get returned to you. And then on this screen there again with the metrics and properties, it'll show you whether it's a string, and if you wanted to come back as something else, you could, and it shows you the properties. And there, for the identifier, you need to pick something that is unique for each one. So I picked ID, and then I called that the subject. So for my example, there's no relationships. There's really no events, because I want something that's simple for everybody to kind of go and test the first time. And I did no customizations. And then under configuration, after you define all your sources and your requests and your objects, it says, all right, here's the configuration. And then when you go under the build, you can actually go and do a test. So it's going to go out and do, like operations every 5 minutes. It goes out and pulls that data in. It's going to do a complete cycle of that. So it's going to go out and do a collection. And if you come down here under the summary, it'll then show you that, hey, it took me 19 seconds, I brought back 1,231 objects, 5 metrics. Here's all my properties. And then you can kind of go through and look at the log if you would have any errors or anything like that. And then under the debugging, it gives you a little bit more information than if you just did info. So you can kind of then see under the objects, it goes out and it says, all right, here's all my properties and stuff, and this is what's being returned when you do the build. So then when you say go ahead at the top, when you select the build button, then it goes out and takes all that information, all your tests were good, so it'll actually build the management pack. You can watch it go through and build. And then at the end of the build, it says, all right, here's your management pack. So you click on this and you can download it onto your computer. And it's the same as if you got a management pack from VMware at that point. So you got this pack file. So then what you do is you go into operations, Aria Operations, and we're going to add that management pack. When I brought in all that management pack information, you can see I created a dashboard out of that. So that whole website, I turned into this dashboard with some nice donut charts. It shows you all the components that were specific to VMware, future notices we talked about. So I brought all that information into a nice dashboard. So to add the management pack, if you've never done that with operations, you're go under integrations, and so you would go under integrations, and then under the repository, you want to do an add, and you'll see all the existing management packs that would be in your installation of operations. And then when you add it, it'll pop up a screen. It says, all right, so you go and you select that management pack that you downloaded, and then you want to upload that to your appliance. And then it'll show up just like all the other management packs. And then what you need to do is to add an account. So we'll do that. So we add an account. Just like if you've ever used operations and you needed to connect to vCenter, you do the same thing here. So you have to define the accounts. So the website for my example was status.broadcom. And there's the host name. The credentials, since you didn't need any for this website, you just make something up. It doesn't need anything specific. And then you tell it which collector and then validate. So as long as that information is correct, when you validate it, you'll get a test successful. So once you install the appliance or the management pack, you define it, you add it, and then when you come back in here, you'll want to make sure that the status will say okay. And like most things in operations, every 5 minutes is when it does its collection. So give it a little time, 10, 15 minutes to start pulling in some of that information. And then when you let it sit for a little bit, if you go under inventory, now you'll see that, there's my Broadcom services, there's my management pack, and then everything that I define, status, we looked at notices future, but then all the other ones that I also defined will show up. And then if you drill down through the inventory, you'll see there's status, and that the state at the last time that it did a collection, it showed that it was degraded. And every 5 minutes, that's going to happen, just like with every other management pack. So if the status changes to something else besides degraded, that'll show you the last one. And then this is I'm showing, here's the rollout update, the information that was brought in. And then you can start looking at the properties just like you would with a host or a VM or anything like that. You can say, all right, here's the properties. You can see that it's coming from status.broadcom, and you can start looking at that information. And then to put that into that dashboard that I showed when I first went into operations, I created a bunch of views. And I don't have enough time to kind of go through all that, but if you go to my website and stuff, I am going to make a blog about this, which will kind of help you get some of the code and show some of this stuff, and maybe we can even have the views and stuff available if you'd want to play with that. So I went through and I created all these views, and all the information for these views was coming from the management pack. So here's the one for notices in the future. So you can see that it's pulling in, hey, here's the name of the notice, what kind of notice is it, is it scheduled, under the description it tells you exactly what that notice is, when it's going to begin. So once you get that information into operations, then you can do whatever you want with it. So here's that dashboard. So since for status.broadcom.com has more than just VMware stuff, but I actually went through and in my view I said, hey, only show me the stuff that's VMware. Show me all the future notices. Show me all the components, all the notices. And if you wanted to create a report out of this instead of a dashboard, you could do that. You could create alerts. If a status of a certain component or whatever isn't operational or something, you could then send emails. So with management packs, today, there's all kinds of management packs out there. This is a list of some of them. You can have it that, for applications, for hardware. The ServiceNow one does a really good job of keeping the CMDB up to date. There's some of the third-party companies are doing their own management packs that are available. But what I wanted to make sure you understood today is that if there's not a management pack available for you, and you have something in your environment that you want to pull data into operations to kind of have that, that single source of information for alerting or dashboards or whatever, you can write your own. So yeah, like I said, it's your data. Bring it in to operations with Management Pack Builder. As long as the source that you're connecting to has an API, fine, like we went through, and then you bring it in. So then, like I said, the reason I wanted to use that website is because it's something very simple for you to learn. So the other example I wanted to get into, besides that website, is one that I demo to my customers in my lab. Is one that now, in the last one, you didn't need a username and password or anything. So this one here, it makes you use an API key and stuff. So I wanted to quickly kind of that and show you the differences. So this is probably like, start with that first one, which is a website, which is kind of simple. And then let's, step it up a notch and go to the next level. So, and this is something that anybody could go out, if you don't want to use it against your hardware, your storage array or something like that. It's a nice way to understand how the Management Pack Builder works. So I'm using api.weather.com, and it's free to use, so you can go out and in my home lab, I actually have it bringing in the weather for the town that I live. I'm bringing in the weather. I'm using a Management Pack Builder to do that, and if the temperature goes above 80 degrees, it'll start turning donuts yellow. If it goes, like 85 degrees, they'll go orange. And if it gets hit 90 degrees within my operations in my home lab, it'll go red. And then I can alert on things, and I have a dashboard. And when customers ask me, they're like, well, why did you do something like that? I always say that maybe you put a temperature sensor in a network closet somewhere in one of your buildings that has an API that you can make an API call to it, which is giving you the temperature of that room. And if that room goes above, same thing. If it hits 80 degrees and you have a dashboard that says, all right, here's the temperature of all my network closets, maybe they'll start turning yellow or turning orange or turning red. And if it hits the red level, you could then take that information and send out an alert or send it to a Teams chat channel, or if you're Slack, you could send that information to Slack It's whatever your company uses. So let's go through that. So the same thing, you define the source. So for this one, I'm using api.weather.com. And the port, and then there's the path, and then it shows you a preview. So it's going api.weather.com, port 443. Now the difference with this one compared to the last one is that this one does require a username and password. So you put in your username and password. And the header stays the same, nothing special there. And then the path for the API, and this is where you have to, whether you're using a storage array or whatever you want to do, you have to look at their documentation. So they're saying that the API path is version 1 and then current.json. So then you can kind of see the preview of what that path, the complete path is going to be. And then there's some parameters. So for this API, they want you to pass the letter Q. Don't ask me why. It's something simple, I guess. And then you put in the zip code of where you want to pull in that information. And then it says, all right, what's the API key, or AQI, that is, which is air quality index. I wanted to make sure I remembered that. So I didn't really care about that. But then the key is the API key. So you have to generate on that website an API key in order to make a call. So then you put that API key in here, and then you do a test. And then the management pack builder will go out to that website and bring back the information. And you can see, it says Dillsburg, PA. There's my longitude, my latitude, my temperature, all that information. And like I said, if this was a sensor that you had in your network closet, or even your data center room, or anything that you want to pull information in with an API, you could use the same concept. Hopefully that makes sense. So then the request, there it is, for get the URL, and then there's the complete path, current JSON. Then put your key in, put your zip code in, put AQI as no, or you could say yes if you wanted to pull that information in. And then there it goes through the request and brings back all the information. So like I said, there's two examples for you. The first one's a website that there's no authentication. Very, very easy to get started. Anybody can go out and download the management pack appliance and put it in your environment to start playing with it. And then the second one, I just wanted to show you, all right, if you needed to use a username and password, and you wanted, one of the requirements was an API key to kind of show you that. So any questions? I mean, has anybody here used a management pack builder yet at all? Anybody thinking about using the management pack builder? Cool. What are you going to use it with? What's
Cisco management pack has a lot of missing information.
Okay, so you want to pull in some information that Cisco didn't provide in theirs? Cool. Any other? Yeah? There is a community, and the team that I work on, we cover all strategic healthcare across the whole U.S. And we're thinking about some with customers when they ask us, and if they would allow it, maybe start building a small inventory that people can go to. If you go out to the community, the VMware community website, there are a couple samples out there that you can kind of bring in. I know my one coworker did one on TrueNAS that kind of shows how to reach into TrueNAS and pull back that information. But yeah, if there's anything, any kind of hardware, even if you have different applications that have API, if you want to bring that information into operations and kind of alert on it or put it in the dashboards, whatever, I mean, it's really up to you, your imagination. You know, what do I want to bring in? What do I want to alert on? You know, to turn it into dashboards and views and alerts and reports. It's really up to you. So it's kind of nice that I've seen so many hands go up. I think there's a lot more interest because some of the current management packs are going away. And it's kind of interesting on timing. You know, I submitted this request back in March before any of that was announced. And as soon as they announced that, like 2 weeks ago, some of the management packs going away, I'm like, hopefully my session fills up now because people are going to want to come and learn how to use a management pack builder. So hopefully this helps. Yeah. Not that I can think of. I mean, as future versions come out, I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to make that easier because they want the customers to kind of do a lot more of making their own. So I don't know any specifics, but as far as something in future versions breaking it, not that I've heard. No, not that I can think of. Any question? Did this make sense? Was it a good example? You know, I mean, I tried to use a source that anybody that's here today or want to watch it later, you know, that it's a public source. Both of them are public sources that you can learn, and then I would encourage you, yeah. That's correct. Yeah, this is for on-prem. Yeah. So yeah, so you know, after you leave here today, if it's something that interests you, pick something simple. You know, even if you just, like I said, if you just go through the management pack builder and make sure it works, you don't even have to add it to operations if you don't want to, just to kind of learn how you can create the management packs. And I'd be curious to see what people come up with in the next year or so. So yeah, reach out. So yeah, this was the first session that you got to come to for Explore 2024. So thank you for showing interest, and it seems like there's a lot of interest from the people. So if you want to take the survey, and there's my information. If you want to follow me on X, you know, like I said, I do blog about it, and don't be surprised if you see some more examples on my blog site on how to use the management pack builder in the future. Like I said, what I do is when I'm meeting with my customers and they come to me with questions, that's what I blog about. So thank you.